Okay, so earlier today we discussed the different types of angles that you can find. You can have linear pairs which form a straight line, and you know that a straight line is 180 degrees. Of course, there are vertical angles that we discussed in class. Now turn to the back side of your notes. We finished up to here in class today. If you're looking at your test booklet, you should be filling in right now, page 29. Go ahead and hit pause and fill that in so that you know exactly what we're talking about. If you already filled that in, then you can go ahead and keep watching. Once you filled that in, this is what you should see: complementary angles and supplementary angles. Complementary angles have measures of 90 degrees. And in this example, A and B are complementary because if you added 37 plus 53, you would get 90. Supplementary angles have a sum of 180, and in this example, it would be A and C. If you added those together, you would get 180 degrees. Some people get confused on this. Since you have it written in your test booklet, you don't have to memorize it. But if you don't feel like flipping through your test booklet all the time, you can remember since C comes first in the alphabet, it goes with the smaller number, 90 degrees. Since S comes later in the alphabet, further along, it goes with the bigger number, which comes later on the number line. Another really important point here is that it's not just an angle that is 90, it's two angles. If you only have one angle that adds up to 90, you're talking about a right angle. To be complementary, you have to have two separate angles that add up to 90. Same thing for supplementary. It has to be two separate angles or else it's just one straight line. But if you have two separate angles that add up to 180, then they are supplementary. They can be side by side, but they can also be separate, just like this. So on the back side of our notes for 1-4, the back side, find that please. And let's look at the examples. Complementary angles are angles, plural, there's got to be two of them, two or more angles whose measures have a sum of, we just said that, is 90 degrees. So what I want you to always think about when you're just seeing complementary angles like this is to make a diagram. Just draw this just to have as an example. You don't have to draw this for the simple ones, but it's going to come in handy when we get to the bottom of the page. So 90 degrees looks like that. 90 degrees is a right angle. But don't forget, when you're talking about complementary, you're talking about two separate angles. So you have to have a line up the inside in the interior in order to show that you're talking about two separate angles. There's this one angle right here, and then there's this angle over here, and you have to constantly keep in mind that it's two separate angles. But together, when you put them together, you get a right angle, 90 degrees. The symbol right here we talked about earlier is a right angle. So what you really have is two angles, a red and a green angle together that make 90. So in our example here, find the complement of 23. If you have two, let me do this. If you have these two angles here and one angle is 23, go ahead and if you can just watch this. You don't have to draw it. 23 here. Then think about how you would find the other angle. Well, the total here, of course, is 90. So all you would do is subtract. Sorry, my thing isn't working, so I have to use a different method of writing here. But you get the idea, 90 degrees all the way across, and we already have 23 degrees. How would you find the missing one? You would subtract. So take your calculators, use your calculators because we don't want to let any little mistakes throw off our whole problem. It's going to be 90 minus 23, and there you go. You get an answer of 67. So when you subtract 90 minus 23, you end up getting 67 degrees. So the other angle right here would be 67 degrees. Just like you did on the quiz on Friday. Okay, so that's for one problem. Now you have another problem, letter B. It says that you need to find it if the first example is 51 degrees. If the first angle is 51, we'll put that right here, 51 degrees, and think about how you would find the second angle. Again, the whole thing is 90 because it's complementary. The two angles together make 90 degrees. 90 minus 51, use your calculators so that you get the every single problem right. You get 39 degrees, and so our answer is 39 degrees. The complement of an angle is 90 degrees minus that angle. So think about now, if I asked you to find the complement of angle X, if there was an X right here, do the same way we did the first two. How would you find the complement of this? Well, you start off with 90 minus X. So your answer, although it looks weird, it's still accurate to say 90 minus X. You start off with the 90, you subtract X, and that's what your answer actually looks like. If you have a variable that you don't know the answer to, you just leave it in the problem, 90 minus X. And that's how your answer would look. For supplementary, it's going to be the same idea. It's two angles. It has to be more than one who have a sum of 180 degrees this time. And think about it. 180 degrees is the same as a straight line. So draw a straight line over here. That's what supplementary is going to mean. But it's not just one angle. It has to be two or more angles. It has to be a plural. So draw another line in the interior so that you can see the three angles happening here. There's two angles on the inside. There's a red angle right here on the inside. And there's a green angle on the other side, but together, side by side, or added together, the red and the green angles make a straight line of 180 degrees. So in this case, all the way across is 180. All the way across here, we get our 180 degrees. 180. So in this case, when we go to try each individual problem, that's going to be what we have to work with. So our first problem is 107 degrees. If one of the angles is 107, right here, 107, and it doesn't matter which one is which, we're just looking at it. I know that the red one looks smaller, but don't go by what it looks like. We're just using the same sketch for each one. Go by the facts. How would you find the missing one? 180 minus 107. And your answer is 73 degrees for the other angle. 73 degrees. So together, 107 plus 73 add up to 180, just like we've done in the past. Okay, go ahead with your calculator. Try to figure out what the supplement of 38 degrees would be. So over here, your first angle is 38 degrees. That's given to us. Go ahead and subtract it from 180. All the way across is 180 minus 38 degrees. And write down what the second angle would be. Pause if you need to. When you subtract that, you should have 142 degrees. Okay, now here's the tricky part. Think about in general, what if they didn't tell you the numbers? What if all I told you was that you have an angle that's y? Put that in our picture here. You can just watch me if you want to. Here's y. Think about it. If one of the angles is y, how would you end up finding the second angle? It's the same as we've been doing all along. You would take your straight line of 180 degrees and you would subtract what you know, y. So it would be 180 minus y. Okay, And I know it looks weird because it's got that letter in there, but you'll have geometry. We're going to be using some numbers, but some letters and just logic that goes along with the rule that we've already been doing. Okay, now look below. Now that you know all the different parts, all the different definitions, we're going to look at these examples because it brings everything together. Identify each pair of angles as adjacent. That's one word we could be looking for. That means side by side, like neighbors. They could be vertical angles, which means across from each other, directly across from each other, like a bow tie or an hourglass kind of angles. Complementary, two angles that add up to 90. Supplementary, two angles that add up to 180. Or a linear pair, which are two angles that are adjacent, they're side by side, and they also form a straight line. That's the word linear there. All right, so look at angle 1 and angle 2. Here's angle 1 and angle 2 right over here. Change the color. Angle 1 and angle 2, when you look at them, they are side by side. They're adjacent. They're neighbors. They share this ray right there in the middle. They are not vertical angles. They're not across from each other. They're side by side. They're not complementary because although angle 2 looks to be 90 degrees, that's only one angle. Complementary requires two angles. So all you can say about this one, or number 1, is that they are adjacent angles. They're side by side. Pause anytime you need to if I'm going too fast. Number 2, we're looking specifically at angle 1 and angle 4, and we're going to choose these words that fit the situation. Are they adjacent? No, they're not side by side. Are they vertical? Are they directly across from each other from crisscrossing lines? Yes, they are vertical. Are they complementary? Possibly, but we don't know that. It could be 45 and 45. It might add up to 90, but we don't know that. All we know is that they're across from each other. They do not make supplementary, and they do not make a linear pair. The next one is angle 3 and angle 4. Look at those separately. Angle 3 is right here, and angle 4 is right here. Are they adjacent? What do you think? Yes or no? Yes, that's right. They are adjacent. They're side by side. Right here, 3 and 4 are side by side. They're neighbors. They share that ray right there. Are they vertical? No, you can't be vertical and be side by side at the same time. Are they complementary? Together, do they add up to 90 degrees? In this case, the answer is yes, because when you put them together, the outer angles or the outer edges look like that, and they are 90 degrees. So these are complementary. They can't be supplementary. You can't be 90 and 180 at the same time, so therefore they are not a linear pair either. We have to identify them. They are right here and right here. Are they adjacent? Yes, they're side by side. They share a side there, so we can call them adjacent. Are they vertical? No, you can't be vertical and adjacent at the same time. Are they complementary? No, side by side. They don't form a right angle side by side now. They form a straight line, which means 180 degrees. So they are supplementary. And it also means linear pair, because side by side they do form a linear pair. Now just because you are 180 degrees doesn't make you a linear pair. You also have to be side by side. All right, and really quickly a challenge question. Do you think that angles 1 and angle 3 are vertical angles? Look at angle 1 here and look at angle 3. They seem to be across from each other, but are they directly across from each other? The answer is no. They have to be exactly across from each other, but when you look at this, they're not across from each other. Here's the line, and they are on the same side of the line. So no, those are not vertical angles. Okay, so let's look at the bottom two, and this is the really important part, and we're going to go over this more tomorrow in class, but I want you to be prepared for that. So go ahead and have these copied down. For these next examples, take it slowly. These are kind of challenging problems. Pause, rewind, and rewatch whenever you need to make sure you're ready. Number 5 in your notes. M and N are complementary. Complementary means that we have two angles that add up to 90 degrees. That's the important thing. So before we do anything else, let's draw that diagram. we have to have 90 degrees. So make yourself a right angle. And it has to be two separate angles. So put in a line on the interior so you can break it up into two separate parts. And remember that this adds up to 90 degrees. All right, so now what you have to do is complete the diagram. Let's say that there's one of the angles, M is 8x minus 6. Put that in your diagram, 8x minus 6. Turn that a little bit. Okay. And your other angle, N, somewhere down here, is going to be 14x plus 8. So write that in your other angle. And then look at how easy this becomes. Just like you had a quiz last week, all you do is angle addition. You add these two smaller angles together, and you get the bigger angle, which of course, since they're complementary, means that they add up to 90. So what we're going to do is look at that diagram and make an equation out of it. 8x minus 6 plus 14x plus 8. You add the two together, two smaller inside angles together, and you should have a total of 90 degrees. This inside angle plus this side angle together, they make the total of 90 degrees. So that's drawing the diagram. Now we're substituting the values. Next step is to solve for x. So we combine our like terms. There's no equal sign in between the x's, so that becomes 22x. And negative 6 plus 8 becomes positive 2 equals 90. Subtract 2 from both sides and you get 88. And then divide both sides by 22 and you get 4. To find the final part of your answer, you plug it in. This one asks you to find each angle, so you plug it in twice. So take your 4 and plug it in right here. 8 times 4 minus 6. And you should get an answer of 26 degrees for this one. And then take your x equals 4 and plug it in right here. And for the other angle, you should get 14 times 4 plus 8. You should get a total of 64 degrees. And always check it. Double check your work. In order for this to be true, 26 plus 64 must add up to 90 degrees, because that's what complementary means. And it works, 90 degrees. All right, we'll just do one more here and we'll do the rest of them tomorrow in class. But I want you to really think as we're doing this one. Take it slowly and think about it. Keywords and step-by-step instructions here. This one's not quite as easy. It's not clearly written out for us. But we have to find our keywords and make that happen. So find the measure of an angle if it is 30 less than 2 times its supplement. All right, remember, it's supplement, so we're talking about two separate angles. And when it's supplementary, of course, we're talking about 180 degrees. That's what supplementary means. Okay, so we have to draw two angles that add up to 180. So here's my 180 degrees. And I have to split that into two separate angles. The total here is 180 degrees, because that's what supplementary means. Sorry about that. So here is the trick when it looks like this. You have to remember that there are two angles, and you have to start off with one of the angles. You can call it whatever you want. I'm going to call it X. Okay, so first we drew we wrote the summary or the diagram. We made a diagram right here. Two angles that add up to 180. Next we're going to substitute the values. You start off by just calling one of the angles X. Every single time you need to give it a name. Whatever letter, whatever variable you want to call it, the angle needs to be called something. So that's the first thing you have to do. Second thing you have to do is come up with the second part of the equation based upon the information. If an angle is 30 less than, 30 less means you're taking away. So put minus 30. 30 less than something. Taking 30 away. And what are we taking 30 away from? It is 30 less than 2 times the other number. So it's 2 times x. And that's it. And this is just like you had last week, angle addition. You're just putting two things together. So now we have x plus 2x minus 30 equals a total of 180 degrees. So now we're going to set up an equation and we're going to solve it for x. X plus the other angle, 2x minus 30, together makes 180 degrees. We're solving it. You have 2x and x make 3x. You add 30 to both sides. You get 210. And you divide both sides by 3, you get 70. Pause anytime you need to so you could copy that down. The last thing you need to do is to find the angles. This one says to find the measure of an angle, so one of the angles. But let's plug it in. X equals 70. That's what this angle is going to be right here. You take your x, you plug it in, you get 70. The other angle, you have to do 2 times 70 minus 30. So I did that. I got 110. 2 times 70 minus 30 equals 110. And then always check your work. Does 70 plus 110 equal 180 like it should? Yes, it does. So you're done.